"Can I sleep in your doghouse?" Ethan Caldwell turned, startled. He had just stepped out onto the stone patio of his Beverly Hills estate, coffee in hand, when he saw her standing there, no more than 6 or 7 years old, soaked to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. The girl was barefoot, her hair matted to her forehead, hoodie clinging to her like a second skin. She was black, thin, and trembling. "I won't cause any trouble," she added, her voice cracking. "I swear I won't steal nothing. Just for tonight, please." Ethan blinked, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The rain cast ghostly reflections against the glass of his sliding doors, and for a moment, he thought this had to be some kind of setup. Maybe someone was trying to bait him into something. A trick? A PR trap? He stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "Who sent you?" he asked sharply. The girl looked confused. "Sent me? This isn't funny," Ethan muttered, scanning the edges of his yard for movement. "Are there cameras? Is this a dare?" "No, please no." She backed away slightly, fear flashing across her face. Max, his golden retriever, padded toward her from the doghouse, tail low but not aggressive. The girl didn't flinch when he approached. Instead, she dropped to her knees beside him, coughing violently into her sleeve. Her body bent forward with the effort. The sound of it, a dry, tearing cough, was unmistakably real. Ethan's suspicion faltered, just slightly. She tried to speak again, but only a whisper came out. "I can sleep outside. I'm so cold, mister. I swear I ain't bad. Please." She broke into another fit of coughing, worse this time. Her shoulders shook, and a wet, ragged breath escaped her lips. She knelt there in the puddle, hugging herself, too weak now to stand straight, and that's when Ethan saw it, not just the water on her cheeks from the rain, but the actual tears, cutting paths down her muddy face. Her lips were blue. Her arms, thin as broomsticks, were covered in goosebumps. She was trying to stay strong, but her body had given up before her will did. Ethan took one slow step forward. "What's your name?" "Anna," she whispered, her voice catching. I didn't have nowhere else to go. Everyone shut their doors. They looked at me like I was dirty." "You ain't dirty, mister. Just tired." "Just tired." Her words cracked something in him. "I don't want to die," she added suddenly, almost in a sob. "Not tonight. Not like this." If you feel for this character, give this video a like and comment where you are watching from. Maybe someone nearby is watching too. The coffee slipped from Ethan's fingers, landing on the stone with a muffled thud. He didn't even flinch. He had built tech empires, survived smear campaigns, won billion-dollar negotiations with poker face poise. But this child kneeling in his yard, soaked and begging to sleep beside a dog, was unraveling something far older, far deeper than all of that. "Okay," he said hoarsely. "Okay, come here." She didn't move at first, as if she couldn't believe him. "You're not in trouble," he added. "I promise." He knelt, holding out his arms. Hesitantly, Anna crawled forward. The moment his hands touched her freezing skin, he flinched, not from disgust, but shock. She was ice. "Jesus," he muttered. "You're burning up. You've got a fever." "I won't bark," she whispered again, barely conscious. "I won't bark." Ethan scooped her up. She was so light it was like lifting a stack of towels. Max followed closely, tail swaying with concern. Inside the house, warm light welcomed them like another world. The marble floors echoed with Ethan's footsteps. Mrs. Higgins, his longtime housekeeper, emerged from the hallway and froze. "Sir, she's sick," he snapped. "Get blankets. Call Dr. Monroe. Tell him to come, now." "But who is?" "She's staying here tonight. That's all you need to know." They laid Anna on the couch in the guest lounge. Mrs. Higgins returned with a warm compress, soup, and clean clothes. Anna stirred weakly, mumbling something about her mother, then coughed again until tears ran down her cheeks. Ethan sat by her side the entire time. "Drink this," he said, holding the spoon to her lips. "You'll feel better soon." Between sips, she looked up at him. "Are you the man who owns the dog?" "I am." "Then, thank you for not making me sleep next to him. Not that I mind." He's nicer than most people. That stung more than he wanted to admit. You're safe now, he whispered. Anna nodded, her eyelids heavy. I just wanted to be somewhere. Warm. Just once. She drifted off before she could finish the sentence. Ethan remained, watching her chest rise and fall beneath the wool blanket. Rain tapped against the window. Softer now. He didn't know who this girl was, where she came from, or what her story held. But he knew this. Whatever life she had run from, it had been cruel, and whatever storm had brought her to his doorstep, it had left its mark. And for the first time in years, the man who lived in a fortress of stone and silence felt something break open. It sounded like a whisper, "Please don't let her sleep outside again." Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the leather armchair across from the couch, elbows on his knees, hands steepled beneath his chin. Anna slept curled up beneath the heavy blanket, her breath shallow but steady. Every so often she coughed, and every time she did, Ethan's jaw tensed a little more. Outside, the rain had softened to a whisper, as if the storm itself were retreating out of shame. He replayed her words again and again in his head. "I don't want to die. Not tonight." A child had said that. A child. It was nearly 3 a.m. when Dr. Monroe arrived, a silver-haired man in his 60s who had been Ethan's on-call physician for over a decade. He stepped into the room quietly, medical bag in hand, and knelt beside the couch. "She's running a fever, likely from exposure," Monroe said after a quick examination. "Some bruises on her ribs, not fresh. Looks like she's been out there a while." "Is it serious?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "Not yet, but it could have been if she spent another night out there. She's dehydrated, malnourished, hasn't had a proper meal in days, maybe longer." Ethan rubbed his temple. "Can you give her something?" "I'll administer fluids, fever reducer. She needs rest more than anything." Monroe paused, glanced at Ethan. "Where did you find her?" "In my yard, asking to sleep in the doghouse." Monroe raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. "She's lucky she found you." Ethan wasn't so sure. After the doctor left, Ethan remained at Anna's side. In the early morning hours, he watched the sky lighten beyond the tall windows, a thin glow stretching across the horizon like a promise too fragile to keep. When Anna stirred just past dawn, the first thing she did was flinch. Her eyes opened wide, panicked. She sat up too fast, sending the blanket tumbling to the floor. Max, who had been sleeping beside her, jumped up, tail thumping. "It's okay," Ethan said, raising his hand slowly. "You're safe." She stared at him, then at the room, then down at her clothes, clean and dry. "I didn't take anything," she said quickly. "I swear it. I didn't even open the drawers." "You're fine, Anna," he said gently. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Joey." Her shoulders relaxed, just slightly. "I thought maybe I dreamed it," she whispered. "The couch, the warm soup, you. It was real." She picked at the edge of the blanket. "Are you going to send me away today?" Ethan inhaled slowly. "I haven't decided." Anna's eyes dropped. She nodded, as if that answer was expected. "That's okay. I can leave before the sun gets high. The streets are quieter in the morning." "You're not leaving just yet," Ethan said, standing. "Let's get you some breakfast." Anna followed him into the kitchen, cautious but curious. She walked like someone who had learned not to take up too much space. The house was awake now, cleaners moving quietly, the scent of roasted coffee and warm butter drifting through the air. Mrs. Higgins eyed Anna skeptically but said nothing. "Make her whatever she wants," Ethan told her. "Anything." Anna sat at the table, hands folded. When asked what she liked to eat, she shrugged. "Toast, maybe, if it's not too much." Mrs. Higgins raised an eyebrow at Ethan, who only nodded. "Give her the works." So Anna got French toast, with powdered sugar and strawberries, and real maple syrup. She stared at it as if it were art. When she finally picked up her fork, she took the smallest bite imaginable. "This is better than anything I've ever had," she said, wide-eyed. "Did you cook it?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Number, but I'll take credit." Halfway through the meal, she looked up, syrup on her chin. "Why did you help me?" He hesitated. "Because someone should have." She nodded, as if that answer was good enough. But Ethan knew it wasn't. The truth was messier. At first, he really had believed she was some kind of plant part of a scam. Maybe even a child actor hired to bait him. That's the kind of world he lived in now. Suspicion was second nature. Trust was a foreign language. But then he saw her cough. He saw her tremble. He saw her cry silently, hoping no one would notice, because somewhere along the way, Anna had learned that tears didn't earn sympathy, only silence did. And that broke something inside him. Later that morning, as Anna explored the living room with Max trailing behind her like a bodyguard, Ethan made a few calls. He canceled his meetings for the day. He asked Monroe to prepare a full checkup and quietly arranged a child psychologist to come to the house later in the week. Then he sat down and did something he hadn't done in years. He opened the internet and searched for emergency housing programs for children. He read about shelters, about the overloaded foster system, about girls who vanished without a trace because no one cared enough to catch them before the streets did. That evening, Anna sat on the floor of his study, drawing quietly with crayons Mrs. Higgins had found in storage. She showed him a new picture, her, Max, and a giant doghouse. But this time, the doghouse had curtains and a welcome mat. Ethan stared at it for a long time. "Is this where you want to live?" he asked. She shrugged. "It's just pretend. It doesn't have to be." She looked up at him slowly, unsure if he was serious. But Ethan Caldwell, a man who built his world from algorithms and margins, was starting to believe in something he couldn't quite quantify. Maybe dignity, maybe purpose, or maybe just the quiet, dangerous hope of a girl who asked to sleep beside a dog and ended up shaking the walls of a fortress he'd spent his whole life building. That night, as she fell asleep under the same blanket, Ethan sat once more in the chair, watching over her. And in the silence between her breaths, he made a promise. Not out loud, not even to himself, but the kind of promise that sits in your bones like fire and dares you to become someone you're not. Yet, Anna moved through the house like someone exploring a museum, curious, quiet, careful not to touch anything too long. The polished marble beneath her bare feet felt like ice at first, then strangely soft once her body adjusted. Every surface gleamed. Every corner was still. It was the kind of place where footsteps didn't echo, they whispered. Ethan trailed behind, watching. She stopped at the grand staircase, her fingers grazing the iron railing. "You have stairs? Just to go up and not be cold anymore?" "I guess that's one way to put it," Ethan replied. She turned to him, her voice soft. "Do you live here alone?" He nodded. "Just me and Max, and the staff." Anna squinted up at the high ceiling, where a chandelier hung like a frozen waterfall. "Do you ever get scared? With all this space?" Ethan looked around, genuinely considering it. "Sometimes. But I've lived here a long time. I got used to the quiet." I don't think I ever could," she murmured. "Quiet makes me think something bad is coming." Her words landed harder than she knew. Ethan felt them settle in his chest like a stone. He led her down a hallway lined with framed newspaper articles, photos of product launches, and awards. She stopped at one photo of Ethan shaking hands with the president, another of him cutting a ribbon in front of a tech campus. "Are you famous?" He shrugged. "Some people know me. Mostly from things I built." Anna studied the photos. "Do any of those things help kids like me?" Ethan didn't answer. They reached a guest bedroom. It was beautifully furnished, blue and cream tones, a wall of books, a window seat looking out over the garden. Anna stood at the doorway, unmoving. "You can sleep here tonight," Ethan said gently. Her voice was barely audible. "Just me?" "Yes." "By myself?" "Yes, but the door stays open. Max will be nearby, and I'll be down the hall." She stepped inside slowly, taking in the room with wide eyes. "This looks like the rooms in magazines at the library. I didn't think real people got to sleep in rooms like this." He handed her a fresh set of clothes folded by Mrs. Higgins. "These should fit better than the last ones." She took them silently, her eyes never leaving the bed. It was big enough for 3 of her. She ran her hand across the quilt, fingers trembling. That night, She slept in the bed, but only after Ethan promised twice that the house would still be there when she woke up. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office, blinds drawn, a glass of scotch untouched on his desk. The silence wasn't comforting like it used to be. It was heavier now, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He opened his laptop and stared at a draft email to his legal team. Subject: emergency guardianship, inquiry. He didn't send it. Not yet. The next morning, Anna didn't come down for breakfast right away. Mrs. Higgins knocked on the guest room door twice before Anna emerged, dressed and quiet. Ethan was already at the table, reading the paper. Max sprawled at his feet. Anna slid into the seat across from him. "Did I sleep too long?" "No," Ethan said. "You slept just right." Mrs. Higgins brought pancakes, eggs, and orange juice. Anna stared at the plate for a while before eating. She still took small bites, as if rationing the food. Halfway through, she looked up. "Did you ever have to sleep outside?" Ethan met her Chaza. "Once." She tilted her head. "Really? My dad left me at a gas station when I was 9. Said he'd be back in 5 minutes. I sat on the curb until morning." Anna's eyes widened. "Did he come back?" "Number." She was quiet for a moment. "That's a worse story than mine." Ethan smiled faintly. "It's not a competition." After breakfast, Anna followed him out into the backyard. The sun was finally shining, the storm having passed. The grass sparkled with dew. She walked over to the doghouse and sat beside it. "I thought this was going to be my home," she said softly. "For real. I was ready to curl up next to Max and just not wake up." Ethan sat beside her, folding his arms. "I'm glad you didn't." She looked at him. "I'm glad you let me in." They sat there in silence, Max lying between them. The garden around them buzzed with quiet life bees in the lavender. A hummingbird dancing above the roses. Then Anna spoke, so softly he almost missed it. "People always think I'm trouble before I even say a word. You did too, right?" Ethan didn't lie. "Yeah, I did." She nodded, not angry, just tired. "That's why I learned to ask small. Ask for less. Like a doghouse. Nobody yells when a stray asks for a corner." Ethan stared at her. "You shouldn't have to live like that. Lots of us do." He felt the heat rise in his chest again, that old buried anger. Not at Anna. At the world. At systems that let kids like her fall through the cracks like spilled pennies. "What if you stayed here a while?" he asked. She turned slowly. "Like, for good? I don't know yet. But longer than one night. Would I have to go to school?" "Yes." "Would I have to call you Dad?" "Number." She smiled. "Good. That's weird." He chuckled. "Fair enough." "Oh." Anna lay back in the grass, arms folded behind her head. Max nuzzled her cheek. She giggled, for the first time since she arrived. Ethan stood, watching her as the sunlight lit her face. For the first time in years, the house felt less like a monument and more like a home. He didn't know what came next. He didn't know if he was ready for lawyers, headlines, or courtrooms, but he knew this. He wasn't letting her go back out into that storm again. Not now, not ever. The day moved slowly, as if time itself was adjusting to a new rhythm. For the first time in a long while, Ethan didn't check his phone every 15 minutes. He didn't review his stocks. He didn't take calls from the board. He simply watched. Anna spent most of the morning with Max, running her small fingers through his golden fur, whispering secrets into his ear. She had a quietness about her, but not the kind that came from shyness. It was the quiet of someone used to listening more than speaking. Someone who had learned that words could either heal or hurt, and too often did the latter. Around midday, Ethan took her to the library on the second floor, a massive room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, deep armchairs, and a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. Anna stepped inside like she was entering a church. "You read all these?" "Some," Ethan admitted. "Most were my mother's. She loved stories, escaped into them." Anna nodded, running a finger along the spine of a worn hardcover. "I get that." She pulled out a tattered copy of The Velveteen Rabbit and held it close. "That one's about becoming real," Ethan said. She turned it over in her hands. Doesn't feel real yet, this place. You. None of it. I get that too, he replied, and left it at that. In the afternoon, a social worker called. Ethan had filed a quiet inquiry earlier in the week through an old contact. He wanted to know what kind of protection or emergency placement options existed for Anna. The answer was what he expected: overloaded shelters, underfunded group homes, and a mountain of paperwork if he wanted to do more. He ended the call with a bitter taste in his mouth. That evening, he stood by the glass doors watching the sunset paint the sky. Anna joined him, clutching a drawing in her hand. "I made you this," she said shyly. It was another crayon picture this time of her, Ethan, Max, and the mansion behind them, drawn with more windows and color than the real thing. Above them was a sun with a big smile, but what caught him was the sign she drew over the front gate. It read, "Home for real." He knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Thank you, Anna. That means more than you know." She leaned her head against his arm, just for a second, then pulled away, pretending it hadn't happened. After dinner, while Anna was brushing her teeth upstairs, Mrs. Higgins approached Ethan in the kitchen, arms crossed. "You're letting this go too far," she said, voice low but firm. Ethan turned to face her. "What do you mean? She's a sweet child, but she's not yours. You have no idea where she came from, what baggage she carries. This house isn't equipped for compassion?" He cut in. "For heartbreak," she replied. There was a beat of silence. "I know what I'm doing," Ethan said quietly. "No, sir," she replied. "You don't. That's why it scares me." She walked away, leaving Ethan alone with the humming of the fridge and the quiet drip of the faucet. Later that night, Anna had trouble falling asleep. She wandered into the hallway in her pajamas, barefoot, holding her crayon, drawing like a security blanket. "Can't sleep," she said. "Too many dreams waiting in the dark." Ethan knelt in front of her. "What do you need? Just a story? Or maybe just a voice?" He led her back to bed and sat beside her, dimming the lights. He began to read from The Velveteen Rabbit, his voice calm and steady, carrying her through the soft, aching beauty of the words. When he reached the part about becoming real, her eyes fluttered. "Does it hurt?" she asked, half asleep. "Becoming real?" "Sometimes," Ethan said, "but it's worth it." Her breathing slowed. She drifted off, the book still open in his hand. And that was when he realized this house, with all its wealth and silence, had never truly been alive. Not until now. Downstairs, his phone buzzed. A new email. Subject: urgent. Media inquiry regarding unconfirmed rumor. His heart dropped. He opened it. A tabloid site had posted a blurry photo: Anna standing beside the doghouse, Ethan in the background, rain blurring the frame. The headline was cruel: "Billionaire's secret stray. Who is the little girl in Ethan Caldwell's yard?" Ethan stared at the screen. They had found her. And now the world would come knocking. He closed the laptop slowly and looked up at the ceiling, toward Anna's room. The war for her peace had just begun, and he wasn't backing down. Ethan stood in the glow of the refrigerator light, glass of water in hand, his jaw tight. The email burned in his mind. The tabloid headline echoing like a bad joke in a hollow room. "Billionaire's secret stray." They made her sound like a dog he'd picked up on the roadside. He stared at the photo again. The angle was slightly off-center, taken from behind the fence, probably with a long lens. Anna's small figure beside Max's doghouse. Ethan in the background, just a shadow in a dark storm. They didn't know her name, yet, but it wouldn't be long. By sunrise, Ethan had already spoken with his PR team. Their advice was swift and sterile. Distance yourself. Issue a statement clarifying she's not under your guardianship. Frame it as a humanitarian gesture. He hung up on them before they finished their sentence. By the time Anna came downstairs, hair messy, eyes still carrying the heaviness of sleep, Ethan had made a decision. "Morning," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Morning," he replied. "Come sit." She slid into the breakfast chair. Mrs. Higgins placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of her with mechanical care, then left without a word. Anna didn't notice. She was too focused on the small box Ethan placed on the table in front of her. "What's this?" she asked. Something for you, he said. Anna opened the lid carefully. Inside was a simple silver bracelet, nothing flashy. Hanging from the chain was a small charm shaped like a key. Her eyes widened. Is this? It's a symbol, Ethan said. A key, not to a door, but to something else. Like what? Staying, belonging, maybe even healing. She ran her finger over the charm. It's pretty. He nodded. So are you. She looked up, surprised. Before she could answer, the intercom buzzed. Ethan stood and walked to the panel. Sir, said the guard's voice, we've got 3 press vehicles outside the gate. No drones yet, but they're definitely camped. Ethan exhaled sharply. Keep the gates closed. Don't engage. Yes, sir. Anna watched him. What's happening? Ethan sat down across from her again. Some people saw you here. Took pictures. They want to know why a little girl like you is with someone like me. Her face fell. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart. Not at all, but I might be. Anna set her fork down. Because of me? Because the world doesn't always like things it can't label. It gets confused. Then angry. She looked down. Maybe I should go. Ethan's voice sharpened. You're not going anywhere. She looked up, startled. I don't care what the world says, he continued. You're safe here. I'll deal with them. Anna's lower lip trembled slightly, then steadied. I never had someone fight for me. Well, get used to it, he said softly. Later that morning, Anna sat quietly in the sunroom with Max while Ethan prepared a press statement, not the kind his PR team wanted, but one written in his own voice. He refused to treat Anna like a scandal. She was a human being, a child in need. If the world wanted a spectacle, they'd have to look somewhere else. At noon, his lawyer arrived, Linda Vega Sharp, no nonsense, and one of the few people Ethan trusted with more than just contracts. She's still technically a Jane Doe, Linda said. No reported missing persons that match. No fingerprints on record. You're in legal limbo. What does that mean? It means if Child Services finds out before we file for emergency guardianship, they can take her. Ethan's face darkened. Not happening. You'll need to make this official. Fast. He nodded. Then do it. Linda hesitated. Ethan, this won't be easy. It'll go public. You'll be scrutinized. People will call it a stunt. I don't care. Linda looked him over, saw the conviction in his eyes, and gave a curt nod. I'll draw up the petition. That night, Anna sat on the back porch with Ethan, the sun dipping low behind the garden wall. She held the bracelet in her hand, turning it slowly. Why are they so mad? She asked. Those people out there, they're not mad at you, he said. They're mad at what you represent. What's that? A reminder. That the system doesn't work the way it should. That some people fall through the cracks. And that someone like me noticed. Anna was quiet for a moment. I don't want to be a reminder. I just want to be a kid. Ethan looked at her, his voice low. Then that's exactly what you'll be. A kid who gets pancakes and stories and warm beds and dogs who love her. Anna leaned her head against his shoulder. You sure I'm worth all this trouble? She whispered. He smiled faintly, wrapping an arm around her. You have no idea. In the distance, camera shutters clicked from beyond the gates, but inside that marble home, a fortress was forming not of stone, but of resolve. Because when the world came knocking, Ethan Caldwell didn't hide. He opened the door wide and stood between it and the girl who had asked to sleep in a doghouse. 2 days passed since the first photo hit the tabloids, and the noise outside the mansion had only grown louder. By the third morning, there were reporters leaning on car hoods, snapping pictures through long lenses, speculating on national television about the mysterious black girl found living in Ethan Caldwell's estate. The headlines ranged from tasteless to vile. Billionaire's charity case or secret love child. Ethan shut off the television every time it came on. Inside the house, the silence remained warm, calm. A different world. Anna adapted quickly to a life she never imagined was meant for her. She never asked for things. She folded her blankets every morning. She said, Thank you, after every meal, every glass of juice, every little gesture. But sometimes, Ethan caught her looking over her shoulder like she was expecting it all to be taken away in a blink. That morning, Ethan stood at the front window, arms crossed, watching the press through the iron gates. Anna came beside him, holding her half-eaten banana. "They're still here," she said. "They don't know when to quit," he replied. She studied them. "They look angry. They're afraid." "Of me?" "Number of change." Anna fell quiet. Then she asked, "Do I have to tell them who I am?" Ethan looked at her carefully. "Only if you want to." She bit her lip. "What if I don't remember all of it?" He knelt beside her, softening his voice. "Then tell me what you do remember." She hesitated, then whispered, "I think my last name starts with a W, maybe Walker. My mom used to call me Little A. And there was a motel. With red doors. Room 8. We stayed there for a while. But then, I don't know what happened." Ethan's stomach tightened. "That's more than enough, Anna." She looked up at him. "Do you think someone's looking for me?" "I hope so. But if not, I'm still here." Anna reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a crumpled photograph. She unfolded it carefully. It was faded, worn thin. But Ethan could make out two people, a woman with dark curly hair holding a baby. "That's her," Anna whispered. "My mom. We used to take bus rides and she'd say, 'One day, we'll ride in limos. Just you wait.' But then she got sick. And then one day, she was just gone." Ethan gently took the photo, nodding. "We'll find out more. Together." A knock sounded at the front door. It wasn't a guard. Not a reporter. It was Linda Vega, briefcase in hand, determination in her stride. Ethan opened the door before she could ring twice. "I've filed the emergency guardianship request," she said without preamble. "But there's a wrinkle." "What kind of wrinkle?" She stepped inside, lowering her voice. "Someone submitted a counterclaim. A man named Gregory Watts. Says he's the child's uncle." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You believe him?" He provided a birth certificate with Anna's full name. Anna Marie Walker. Mother, Tasha Walker. Father unknown. Gregory's name is listed as the emergency contact. From the corner of the hallway, Anna peered out. "Watts?" she echoed. Linda turned. "Do you know that name, sweetheart?" Anna's face drained of color. "Uncle Greg? Do you remember him?" Ethan asked gently. Anna took a step back. "He's not nice. He used to lock the fridge at night. And when Mom got too sick to walk, he stopped coming by." Linda frowned. "That's not the kind of man I'd want raising a dog, let alone a child." Ethan's jaw clenched. "What's our move?" "I'll contest the claim," Linda said. "But Child Services will want to talk to her. Soon. They'll want to verify the living conditions here. And if she's truly better off." Ethan glanced at Anna, who now stood frozen by the stairwell. "She's not a file. She's not an asset. She's a little girl who finally got a warm bed." Linda softened. "I know. That's why I'm fighting this too." When Linda left, Ethan knelt before Anna. "Hey," he said, "you don't have to talk to anyone you don't trust, okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes brimming. "I don't want to go back. Not even for a second." "You won't," he promised. "Not as long as I can breathe." That evening, Anna helped Mrs. Higgins bake cookies for the first time. She wore an oversized apron and got flour on her nose. She giggled, really giggled, for the first time since she arrived. Even Mrs. Higgins, still guarded, smiled once or twice. Ethan watched from the doorway, his chest tight with something that felt dangerously close to hope. When the cookies were done, Anna brought him one. "Do you think my mom would like this house?" she asked. "I think she'd like the fact that you're safe," he replied. Anna smiled. "Me too." Later that night, when Anna had gone to bed, Ethan sat alone in his study, the lights low. He looked at the photo again, the one of Anna and her mother. He placed it next to a framed photo of himself at age 9, standing outside that gas station, a police officer's coat draped over his shoulders. 2 lost kids, 2 moments the world tried to forget. But not anymore. Not on his watch. The morning came with a chill in the air, even though the sun was shining. Ethan knew the moment he looked out the window that something had shifted. The reporters were still there, 3 vans now, plus a man with a drone controller who was being told off by security, but that wasn't what caught his attention. It was the black sedan parked across the street. Government plates. 2 men in suits leaned against it, speaking quietly. Watching the house. Ethan didn't like it. He poured himself a cup of black coffee, took a sip, and walked into the sunroom where Anna sat cross-legged on the floor. Coloring. Max was snoring beside her, legs twitching in some unseen dream. "Morning," Ethan said. Anna looked up. "I gave Max a makeover." She held up a crayon drawing of Max wearing a crown and cape. "He looks very noble," Ethan replied with a smile. Then he crouched beside her. "Anna, I need to tell you something." She stopped coloring. "Someone may come by today," he said. "A man who says he's your uncle." Her hand gripped the crayon tightly. "Uncle Greg?" "Maybe," Ethan said carefully. "I haven't let him in, and I won't, unless you want to see him." Her mouth twisted. "I don't. He always smelled like beer and yelled at the television. He made Mom cry." Ethan's chest ached. "Okay, then you don't have to see him, but the people from Child Services might still come. They'll ask you questions. You can answer honestly, or you can tell them you're not ready. Either is okay." Anna nodded slowly, her eyes wide and serious. "Will they take me away?" Ethan looked her in the eye. "Not if I can help it. And I promise you, Anna, I will help it." By noon, Linda Vega was back. She had already filed a motion contesting Gregory Watts's claim, but that didn't stop him from showing up. They watched from the security camera as he approached the gate. A tall man in his 50s, thinning hair, with a long tan coat that hung unevenly over a wrinkled shirt. He looked out of place, too casual for court, too smug for compassion. He banged on the intercom. "I'm here for my niece. That rich guy's keeping her locked up like some pet. You can't just collect kids like stray animals." Ethan stood inside the foyer, watching it unfold. "Do not open the gate," he instructed the guard. Gregory paced outside like a wolf denied entry. The press caught sight of him and flocked, cameras rolling. He turned and started shouting again, now into microphones. "She's my blood. Her mother was my sister. I'm just trying to do what's right." Linda snorted. What's right, according to him, is a welfare check and free rent. Ethan said nothing. He turned from the camera feed and went upstairs. Anna was sitting on her bed, knees to chest, hugging Max. "He's here, isn't he?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said softly. She pressed her forehead into Max's back. "He always said I was too much trouble. That my mom should have given me up." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "He doesn't get to decide your worth, Anna." But what if they believe him?" she whispered. "What if they make me go with him just because we share a name?" Ethan took a breath. "Then I'll fight harder. And I won't stop." Later that day, a knock came at the front door. 2 women from Child Services, one older, with reading glasses on a chain, and one younger, with kind eyes, stood politely, holding clipboards and legal forms. "Mr. Caldwell," the older one said, "we've received a temporary placement claim for the child residing here. We'd like to ask a few questions." Ethan nodded. "I expected as much. You're welcome to come in." They stepped inside, taking in the immaculate entryway. The quiet calm, the framed photos now including a new one. Anna's drawing of the house labeled home. They asked for Anna. Ethan gave her the choice. She came downstairs slowly, her feet dragging. But when she met the eyes of the younger social worker, she straightened a little. "Hi," she said. "I'm Anna Marie Walker." "Oh," the older woman nodded. "Anna, we're here to make sure you're safe and cared for. Can we sit and talk a bit?" Anna looked at Ethan. He nodded gently. So they sat Anna on the couch, hands in her lap, answering questions with soft precision. "Yes, I sleep in my own bed. Yes, I eat 3 meals. Yes, Max is the best dog ever. No, I don't want to go live with Uncle Greg. The younger woman leaned forward. Can you tell us why? Anna hesitated. Then she lifted her shirt slightly, just enough to reveal a faint scar along her ribs. He said it was my fault. When the pot boiled over. Said I was always making things harder. The room went silent. Ethan felt fire crawl up his spine. The older woman cleared her throat. Thank you, Anna. You're very brave. That evening, after the workers left, Ethan stood in his office, staring out at the driveway. The black sedan was gone, Gregory, too. But something deeper had settled. An invisible line had been drawn. Anna came in, barefoot, holding her drawing. I want you to have this, she said, so you don't forget. Ethan knelt down. I'm not going to forget, Anna. She looked at him carefully. Even if they make me leave? They won't, he said firmly. And if they try, I'll remind them who you really are. She tilted her head. Who's that? He smiled. You're the girl who made this house a home. And for the first time, Anna hugged him, not a cautious lean, not a shy touch, but a full, trembling embrace that cracked the last wall around Ethan's heart. Outside, the headlines would continue. But inside, a family was quietly, defiantly, forming. The courthouse smelled like old wood and newer fear. Anna sat beside Ethan on the long wooden bench, her legs swinging a few inches off the floor. She wore a pale blue dress Mrs. Higgins had ironed twice, and her braids were neatly tied back with ribbons. But she still held Max's worn collar in her palm like a talisman he couldn't come inside. But she carried him with her anyway. Ethan sat upright, dressed in a dark suit and tie, the picture of composed power, but under his skin, his nerves buzzed like wires. He had faced hostile shareholders, global scandals, even death threats from rivals. None of it made his hands sweat like this. Across the courtroom sat Gregory Watts, smug and confident, his lawyer whispering something into his ear. He glanced over at Anna once, gave a half smile. She immediately looked down. Linda Vega leaned in between Ethan and Anna. The judge is fair. But we're going to need to lean on emotional truth today, not just paperwork. Ethan nodded. We're ready. The bailiff called the courtroom to order, and the judge entered an older black woman, with sharp eyes and silver streaks in her hair. She carried authority not like a badge, but like a scar she'd earned. This hearing is to determine the temporary custody status of minor Anna Marie Walker, she began. Representing the claimant, Mr. Gregory Watts, is Attorney Stein. Representing Mr. Ethan Caldwell is Attorney Linda Vega. Let's begin. Gregory's lawyer went first. He painted Gregory as the concerned uncle, a grieving family member simply trying to keep his niece in the family. He spoke of blood ties and family obligations, glossing over any prior absence or abuse allegations. We ask the court, the lawyer concluded, to return Anna to her rightful guardian and allow her to heal among those who share her name and history. Linda stood. With respect, Your Honor, Mr. Watts has not had custody, guardianship, or consistent involvement in Anna's life. He is not listed as a primary caregiver in any school, medical, or welfare record. In contrast, Mr. Caldwell has provided a safe, stable environment for the child during a time of profound vulnerability. The judge turned to Ethan. Mr. Caldwell, why did you take in this child? Ethan stood, voice steady. Because she asked if she could sleep in my doghouse. And I couldn't live with myself if I said no. A murmur spread through the gallery. The judge raised an eyebrow. She asked to sleep in your doghouse? Yes, ma'am, in the middle of a storm. She was soaked through, coughing, and shaking. I thought she was trespassing at first. Then I realized she was surviving. And she asked for less than she deserved. The judge paused. And what do you believe she deserves? Everything, Ethan said. A warm bed, a real school, safety, laughter, choices. She's not a stray, she's a child. Gregory's lawyer stood again. But Mr. Caldwell is not family. He is a billionaire tech CEO. What experience does he have raising a child? I didn't have experience being one, either, Ethan said. My father abandoned me when I was 9. I lived on the street for a month before someone took me in. I remember every night of it. I won't let her go through the same. Linda called Anna to the stand. Ethan leaned down. Only if you're ready. Anna gave a small nod and walked to the witness chair. Max's collar still clutched in her fist. Her voice was quiet but unwavering. My name is Anna Marie Walker. My mom was Tasha Walker. She died 2 years ago. After that, I lived in lots of places. Sometimes motels, sometimes with Uncle Greg. But mostly I was alone. The judge leaned forward. And how have you felt staying with Mr. Caldwell? Anna looked at Ethan. Safe. For the first time in my life, Gregory's lawyer stepped forward. Anna, do you remember any times Mr. Watts took care of you? Anna's voice shrank. He brought us food sometimes, but he also yelled, lock the fridge. One night, he pushed Mom. She fell and hit her arm. I remember the bruise. The room fell still. The judge turned to Gregory. Mr. Watts, do you deny this allegation? Gregory stood. Kids misremember things. She was scared. Her mother was sick. It was chaos. The judge narrowed her eyes. But you never reported her as missing? No, he said. You never sought custody until after a picture of her with Mr. Caldwell went viral? Gregory hesitated. I didn't know where she was. Ethan rose. Neither did I. But I found her. And I didn't wait for paperwork to protect her. The judge called a recess. During the break, Anna sat on the bench beside Ethan, swinging her feet again. Did I do okay? She asked. You did more than okay, Ethan said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You told your truth. That's more than most adults can manage. After 20 minutes, court reconvened. The judge took her seat and glanced over the paperwork, then fixed her eyes on the room. I have reviewed the testimony and evidence presented today. This is not a final custody ruling, but based on current safety, emotional well-being, and expressed desire of the minor, I am granting temporary guardianship to Mr. Ethan Caldwell. A collective gasp filled the room. Gregory slammed his hand on the bench. You can't do this. She's family. She's also a person, the judge replied, and she deserves to choose where she feels safe. The gavel came down. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, cameras clicked. Reporters swarmed. Ethan held Anna's hand tightly as they walked down the steps. She kept her head down, but when one reporter shouted, Anna, are you happy with this outcome? She stopped. She looked up. Yes, she said. I finally get to go home. And beside her, Ethan smiled not for the cameras, not for the press, but for the little girl who had once asked for the doghouse, and now walked beside him into the light. Life after the hearing changed, but not in the way Ethan expected. The press didn't fade. The noise didn't quiet. If anything, their victory in court ignited more headlines. Some praised Ethan as a hero, others labeled him reckless, even manipulative. Tech billionaire adopts orphan for PR, one op-ed sneered. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't need to. He wasn't doing this for them. Back at the estate, Anna returned to her daily rhythms with a kind of cautious joy. Her coloring books multiplied. Max followed her everywhere like a knight guarding a queen. Mrs. Higgins, once wary, now left notes on Anna's breakfast plate, little hearts and encouraging words in her loopy script. But something else had shifted too. Anna began to ask questions. Big ones. Restless ones. Do I have cousins? She asked one evening, curled up on the couch with Ethan watching an old black and white movie. Maybe, he replied honestly. Family trees can be complicated. Can we look? Ethan paused. Do you want to? Anna nodded slowly. I want to know who I came from. But I also want to know who wanted to forget me. Ethan reached for his laptop and pulled up a genealogy site. They sat side by side, scrolling through digital archives, census records, and newspaper clippings. It wasn't long before a name popped up: Tasha Walker, Anna's mother. A brief obituary. No picture. A note that she'd passed away at a clinic in Detroit, unclaimed. No funeral record, just a name in a database. Anna stared at the screen. She died alone. Ethan's voice was gentle. But you're not. Over the next few days, they dug deeper. Ethan hired a private researcher. It wasn't about custody anymore, it was about truth. About giving Anna something solid to hold on to, a real past, not just a stray memory in the rain. The researcher called one morning. "I think I found something," she said. Tasha had a younger sister, Monique Walker. Lives in Cincinnati. Records show she worked as a nurse. No criminal history. No reported contact with Anna. But she might not have known the child existed. Ethan thanked her and hung up. He paced the study before knocking softly on Anna's door. "Hey," he said, "I have something." Anna sat up straight on her bed. "Good news or scary?" "Maybe both." He sat beside her and explained, carefully, every detail. "Aunt Monique?" Anna echoed. "I don't remember her." "She may not remember you either. Or maybe she was kept away." Anna picked at the hem of her sleeve. "Do you think she wants to see me?" "I don't know," Ethan said. "But I think you deserve the choice." A few days later, they drove to Cincinnati. No press, no guards, just Ethan, Anna, and Max in the back seat with his tongue hanging out the window. The trip felt like something between a road trip and a pilgrimage. They arrived at a modest townhouse just before sunset. Anna clutched her drawing pad like armor. "I don't have to go in if I don't want to, right?" she asked. "Not one step," Ethan promised. But when the door opened, a woman in blue scrubs stepped out. She had tired eyes, a strong jaw, and a face that bore a haunting resemblance to Tasha's photo. She froze when she saw Anna. Ethan stepped forward. "Monique?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm Ethan Caldwell. This is Anna." Monique's hand flew to her mouth. "Tasha's baby?" Anna stared. "You knew my mom?" Monique stepped down the stairs slowly, like her legs had forgotten how to move. She crouched in front of Anna. "You're her," she whispered. "I never got to say goodbye to your mom. She left when I joined nursing school. Said she had to go her own way. I wrote letters, but they came back unopened." Anna's voice trembled. "Why didn't you come find me?" "I didn't know you existed," Monique said, eyes filling with tears. "Tasha never told me she had a daughter." Anna looked at Ethan, unsure. He knelt beside her. "It's okay. You don't have to decide anything today." Monique looked between them. "Would you stay for dinner? Just to talk?" Ethan deferred to Anna. She took a long breath, then nodded. "Okay. But only if Max gets a plate too." That night, they sat at a small wooden table, sharing stories, photos, even some of Monique's old letters. Anna asked questions shyly at first, then more boldly about her mother, their childhood, music they liked, the time they almost got arrested for sneaking into a concert. Monique laughed. "She had a wild streak, your mama." "I have one too," Anna said proudly. After dinner, Monique pulled out an old photo album. Inside was a faded picture Tasha and Monique as teenagers, arms around each other, grinning. Anna touched it gently. "She looks happy." "She was," Monique said, "before the world got too heavy." As they left that night, Monique hugged Anna tightly. "You don't have to call me anything," she said. "But if you ever want to talk, I'm here now." Anna didn't speak on the ride home. She leaned against the window, Max's head in her lap, the photo album clutched to her chest. But just before she fell asleep, she whispered, "I'm starting to remember her smell. Jasmine and cocoa butter." Ethan smiled. "She'd be proud of you, Anna." And in the silence that followed, something healed quietly, invisibly, but completely. A thread sewn back through the fabric of a life just beginning to be whole again. Ethan stood in front of the wide glass windows of his study, watching the early morning mist crawl across the lawn like a ghost. The house was quiet, except for the occasional scratch of Max's paws on the hardwood floor. Upstairs, Anna was still asleep, curled up with the photo album they had brought back from Cincinnati, her hand resting on a picture of her mother as if it anchored her dreams. The visit to Monique had been healing. For Anna, it opened a door she never knew existed. For Ethan, it affirmed that Anna was not just a lost soul he'd stumbled upon, she was part of a story that deserved to be reclaimed. But the peace didn't last. Linda called just after 8 a.m. "Ethan, we've got a problem." He could hear it in her voice, the tension, the reluctance. "What kind of problem?" Gregory Watts. He filed an appeal. Ethan's jaw clenched. On what grounds? He's accusing you of coercion. Claims you manipulated Anna. Interfered with her testimony. He says you used your influence and wealth to buy favor in the court. Ethan's voice dropped. That's a lie. I know that, Linda said. But the court doesn't work on emotion. It works on evidence. And if he convinces the appellate judge there's enough to question the original ruling, it could mean another hearing. Possibly even temporary removal. Ethan's chest tightened. I won't let her go through that again. There's more, Linda added. Someone leaked the report. The scar, the testimony. It's all over the tabloids this morning. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. The headlines came flooding in. Billionaire shields abused girl. Hero or hidden agenda. Anna Walker's pain exposed again. Inside the Doghouse rescue scandal. When Anna came down the stairs, rubbing her eyes and smiling softly, Ethan turned off the television before she saw. Morning, she said. Morning, sweetheart. You hungry? She nodded. Can I have pancakes? Anything you want. They sat at the table, Mrs. Higgins serving them without the usual small talk. Even she had seen the headlines. Anna poured syrup slowly, then asked, Why was Max barking so much last night? Ethan hesitated. He probably heard something outside. Maybe a raccoon. Anna looked at him. You're lying. Ethan blinked. What? You don't lie often, but your voice does this little thing. It gets tighter. You're worried. He sighed. Someone's trying to make trouble. About our case, but Linda's handling it. Anna stared down at her plate. Is it because of me? It's because someone doesn't want to lose control. Later that day, Ethan received a private message from an anonymous account. Attached was a video, a shaky recording of Anna in the courtroom, clutching Max's collar, her voice cracking as she described the scar. Ethan watched the clip once, then deleted it. He called his head of security. Tighten everything. No one gets near the house. Check staff phones. Someone's leaking. But the damage had already begun. At school, one of the older girls cornered Anna during lunch. So your uncle hit you, huh? The girl said. Guess rich people like saving damaged things. Anna froze. Her tray slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. Laughter echoed from another table. She ran to the nurse's office, trembling and silent. Ethan arrived within 20 minutes. When he saw her sitting in the nurse's chair, knees hugged to her chest, his heart broke. I want to go home, she whispered. He knelt beside her. Okay. On the way back, Anna finally spoke. I liked school. I liked reading and art class. But I don't want to go back there. You don't have to, Ethan said. We'll figure something else out. I just want quiet, she said. I just want people to stop looking at me like I'm a headline. Back home, Ethan paced the study again. Linda called with another update. We have one shot, she said. A media interview, one of the serious networks, not tabloids. You, on camera, with Anna's consent, telling the truth. Humanize this. Take control of the narrative. Ethan was silent for a long moment. I don't want to put her through that. You won't be, Linda said. You'll be protecting her. People need to hear from you, not just the court, but the world. That night, Ethan sat with Anna on the back porch. Fireflies blinked in the garden. Max laid at their feet. Anna, Ethan said, do you remember what we talked about stories? She nodded. You said the world doesn't always tell them right. Would you be okay if we told ours, together? She looked up. Like on television? Yes, but only if you want to. She thought for a long moment, then nodded. As long as they know I'm not afraid. Ethan smiled. They will. The next day, the interview was filmed in the sunroom, sunlight pouring in through the tall windows. The journalist was kind, soft-spoken, and respectful. She asked Ethan about the first night he met Anna, about the hearing, about the accusations. Then she turned to Anna. Do you think Mr. Caldwell saved you? Anna looked into the camera, her voice calm. He didn't save me. He saw me. That's different. That quote would go viral within hours. By nightfall, The headlines began to shift. She's not a story, she's a voice. Anna speaks. And the world listens. And in that quiet house on the hill, Ethan knew they had turned the tide. Not by shouting, but by telling the truth together. In the days following the interview, the mansion became quieter, but not because the world had stopped watching. It was quieter because the noise had shifted. The judgment, once loud and intrusive, had taken on a tone of respect. People stopped seeing Anna as a symbol of scandal and began recognizing her as a symbol of strength. Ethan noticed it everywhere, from the careful tone in the reporters' questions to the handwritten letters arriving at his office. Most were from strangers. Some told stories of their own childhoods, of scars they carried, of kindness that had saved them. Others simply said, "Thank you for seeing her." But not all voices were kind. Late one night, Ethan sat in his study with Linda Vega on speakerphone. Her voice, calm as ever, carried an edge he hadn't heard before. "We've got a leak in the Department of Child Services," she said. "Someone's been feeding information to Gregory's attorney." That's how they got the courtroom video. Ethan leaned back in his chair. "Can we trace it?" "I'm working on it. But there's something else." Watts filed for a federal injunction. He's alleging civil rights violations, says Anna was denied due process, and that your wealth created undue influence on the judge. Ethan closed his eyes. "So this never ends," Linda sighed. "That's what abusers do, Ethan. They don't give up power. They make you fight for your peace." Outside, the wind picked up. Max, sensing Ethan's mood, laid his head gently on his lap. Upstairs, Anna slept. Or so Ethan hoped. She hadn't said much since the interview aired, not out of fear but out of weariness. She had spoken her truth to the world, and now she was watching to see if the world would listen. The next morning, Ethan drove her to a nearby park, someplace quiet, far from the cameras. Anna brought her sketch pad and crayons, drawing quietly on a bench while Ethan watched the trees sway. "I want to build something," she said suddenly, looking up. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Like a treehouse?" "No," she said. "Like a center, a place for kids like me, with food, beds, books, but also dogs, and nobody yelling." He looked at her, struck. "You want to build a shelter?" "Not a shelter," she said. "A beginning." Ethan was quiet for a long time. "I think that's the best idea I've ever heard," he finally said. Anna returned to her drawing, sketching a big building with glass walls and a rooftop garden. There were children in the windows, waving. Max stood at the door like a furry guardian. That afternoon, Ethan made calls. He contacted architects, social workers, trauma counselors. The plan wasn't to throw money at a charity. He wanted to build something lasting. A center run by people who had lived through the darkness and come out the other side. They named it The Hearth. Construction would take time, but the vision was already real in Anna's notebook, in Ethan's calendar, in the people who began volunteering before a single brick was laid. But even as something beautiful was born, shadows lurked. One morning, while Ethan reviewed site plans, he received an envelope. No return address. Inside was a single page, a printed email exchange between two child services employees. The final line made Ethan's stomach turn. "Let the billionaire play dad for a while. In the end, we both know where that kid will land." Enraged, he forwarded it to Linda, then drove to the department headquarters himself. He walked into the building with a calm fury, his tailored suit immaculate, his presence undeniable. The director met him in a cold conference room. "Mr. Caldwell." "Don't," Ethan interrupted. "Don't pretend this department hasn't failed her. You don't get to hide behind bureaucracy. We're investigating the leak." "You're the leak," Ethan snapped. "Or you enabled it." The director shifted uncomfortably. "You can't make threats." "This isn't a threat," Ethan said, standing. "It's a promise. If one more piece of private information about Anna ends up in the hands of my lawyers, I'll sue this department into the Stone Age, and I'll win." He left without waiting for a response. Back home, Anna sensed the tension. "Did something bad happen?" she asked. Ethan didn't lie. "Someone said something unkind. But I'm taking care of it." Anna stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "Good." Later that night, she left something on his desk, a new drawing. This one showed two people standing together in a storm, holding a shared umbrella. "You always say I'm brave," she wrote in the corner. "But I think you're brave too. Because you keep staying." That simple truth nearly undid him. The next morning, Anna woke to a surprise. Ethan had converted a guest room into an art studio, canvases, paints, brushes, all arranged in sunlit glory. "For the founder of the hearth," he said. She squealed and hugged him. In the joy of that moment, they didn't hear the knock at the front gate. They didn't see the manila envelope handed to the guard. But when the butler brought it inside and placed it in Ethan's hands, the weight of it was unmistakable. Inside, a court summons. Gregory Watts had won an appeal. A new hearing had been set. Ethan folded the paper slowly. Max whined at his feet, sensing the shift. Anna looked up from her canvas. "What's wrong?" He forced a smile. "Nothing you need to worry about, not yet." But inside, he felt it. The next battle was coming, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever. The new courtroom was colder than the first, less grand, more clinical. No tall ceilings or noble paintings, just gray walls and fluorescent lights that made everyone look paler. Ethan sat beside Anna, his hand resting gently on the back of her chair. She wore a navy blue cardigan, and her hair was neatly braided. But her eyes told the truth. She was tired, not just physically, but soul deep. The kind of exhaustion that comes from being watched, doubted, dissected. Gregory Watts sat on the opposite bench again, freshly shaved and dressed in a tailored suit that didn't quite hide the puffiness in his face or the twitch in his jaw. His lawyer whispered confidently in his ear, passing documents with red tabs and highlighted quotes. Linda Vega leaned in toward Ethan. "They've switched tactics. Less about your wealth this time, more about emotional manipulation. They're arguing that Anna has Stockholm Syndrome, that she's formed an unhealthy bond with you because of the trauma." Ethan didn't blink. "Unbelievable. Not to a system that's used to broken people," Linda replied. "They're playing to buy us now." The judge entered, a younger man this time, late 40s, sharp glasses, unreadable expression. He glanced quickly at both sides, then at the paperwork in front of him. "This court is convened to determine the validity of the prior custody ruling and to assess whether the child, Anna Marie Walker, is currently in the best environment for her health and development." Anna's name echoed in the room, a fragile sound against the concrete silence. Gregory's lawyer began with a polished statement, citing psychological studies, courtroom precedent, and interviews from sources within Anna's old school district. He painted a picture of Ethan as overbearing, emotionally overwhelming. A man whose wealth created an illusion of safety, but offered no true parental foundation. Ethan didn't flinch, but Anna did. Just slightly. Then came the twist. The lawyer produced a printed transcript, one of Anna's quotes from the television interview. She said, and I quote, "He saw me. That's different. Your Honor, we argue that this statement reflects a dangerous overdependence. Not gratitude, not clarity. Dependence." Linda rose like a storm cloud. That quote was spoken by a child who finally felt seen, not manipulated. And if the court chooses to interpret healing as dependency, we're in dangerous waters. But the judge remained expressionless. Next, they called a state-appointed child psychologist to the stand, a woman in her 60s, with a calm demeanor and wire-rimmed glasses. She testified that, based on limited interviews and third-party assessments, there were signs of emotional bonding that should be closely monitored, and uncertainty around long-term outcomes in a non-traditional parental environment. Ethan sat stone still. Then Linda stood and called her own witness, Monique Walker. Anna's aunt entered in a plain gray skirt and blouse, her nursing badge still clipped to her collar. She sat down and met the judge's eyes with unwavering calm. "I didn't know Anna existed until a few weeks ago," she began. "And it broke my heart. Because I could have done something. Could have helped. But I was too late." She looked at Ethan. "I watched that man take in a child he had no connection to, no obligation to. And instead of calling a lawyer, he called her family. She wasn't rescued. She was loved." Gregory's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Monique turned to Anna and smiled gently. "She deserves permanence. not a revolving door of courtrooms. She deserves to build something, to rest. When she stepped down, Ethan reached for Anna's hand under the table. Finally, the judge called Ethan to the stand. He took the oath, sat in the chair, and looked across the room, not at Gregory, not at the jury box, but straight at the judge. "I didn't ask for this," Ethan began. "I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be a father. But when Anna asked if she could sleep in my doghouse, I realized something. We don't always choose our roles. Sometimes, the roles choose us." He let the silence breathe. "Every day since then, I've made decisions to protect her. Not because it looks good, not because it feels noble, but because it's the right thing to do. She is not my pet project. She is not my redemption arc. She's my daughter, and I will fight for her with everything I have." The room was still. The judge made a note, then announced a short recess. Outside the courtroom, Ethan and Anna sat on a bench. Neither spoke at first. Anna broke the silence. "Do you think they'll take me away?" Ethan looked into her eyes. "No matter what happens, they can't take you from my heart." She nodded, tears brimming but not falling. "Okay." When they returned to the courtroom, the judge read his preliminary statement. "This is not an easy decision. The court does not function on sentiment. It functions on law. But sometimes, those two must meet in the middle." He paused, then looked directly at Ethan. "Mr. Caldwell, you've gone to great lengths to care for this child. However, the court finds there is sufficient cause to order a final independent evaluation before a permanent custody decision is rendered." The room gasped. "Anna will remain in your care during this evaluation period. The evaluation will be conducted by a neutral, court-appointed child advocate over the next 30 days. At the end of that period, a final decision will be made." Ethan exhaled slowly. Gregory stood abruptly. "You can't do this. That's my blood." The judge banged the gavel. "You will sit down, Mr. Watts." Gregory did, but his glare was poisonous. Outside, as they left the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Ethan ignored them. He guided Anna into the car, where Max was waiting. As they pulled away, Anna whispered, "So, we wait again?" Ethan nodded. "We wait, but we prepare too. We show them who you are. Who we are." Anna looked out the window. "Then let's make sure they remember." And somewhere in the sky above them, the clouds began to part. Not fully, not yet, but enough to let a sliver of light through. Hope, Ethan thought, wasn't a verdict. It was a choice, one they would keep making together. The 30-day evaluation period began under a haze of watchful eyes and unspoken fears. The court-appointed advocate, a woman named Eleanor Bryce, arrived on a quiet Monday morning. She was in her early 60s, tall and sharp, dressed in navy slacks and a soft gray sweater. Her presence was calming, but firm. She introduced herself simply to Anna. "You can call me Miss Bryce. I'm here to learn about you and your life." Anna studied her with the same cautious curiosity she once reserved for new dogs at the shelter. She nodded but said nothing. Ethan stepped aside, giving them space. He wasn't allowed to influence the process, nor would he try. Still, it pained him to hear Anna's laughter come from the next room, without knowing if it was genuine or guarded. Miss Bryce was thorough. She visited the house 3 times a week, sometimes observing, sometimes interviewing. She reviewed Anna's drawings, her school records, her sleeping patterns. She asked questions that made Ethan's heart tighten. "Do you feel safe here? Do you ever feel like you have to be perfect? What do you think it means to be loved?" To his quiet relief, Anna answered each one with honesty and clarity, even if her words occasionally made his chest ache. Midway through the evaluation, Miss Bryce requested a joint interview. Ethan and Anna sat together on the sunroom couch, sunlight falling between them. "I want to ask you both the same question, Miss," Bryce said, "but separately. No discussion until both answers are given." Anna nodded first. "If tomorrow, this arrangement ended, if Anna went to live elsewhere, what would change in your life?" Anna went first. She looked at Ethan, then at her hands. "I'd be scared again. she said softly. Not because I think I can't survive, but because I'd have to unlearn safety, and I don't want to unlearn that. Miss Bryce nodded, then turned to Ethan. He didn't hesitate. I'd wake up every day missing a part of myself. I've built businesses, survived markets, negotiated billion-dollar deals. But I've never built something that mattered as much as earning her trust. Losing that would wreck me. Miss Bryce made a small note, then said nothing else. The interview ended. Later that week, she visited Anna's school to speak with her teachers. One of them, Mrs. Garvey, had tears in her eyes. She draws these portraits, the teacher said, always people holding hands, or under the same umbrella. She told me once that family isn't about who you're born to. It's who doesn't leave. Miss Bryce nodded, visibly moved. Near the end of the month, the evaluation turned more difficult. A social worker had uncovered a distant cousin on Gregory Watts' side who had expressed interest in custody. A woman named Yolanda Watts, recently married, no children, clean record. She lived in Arizona and had never met Anna, but in the eyes of the system, biology still carried weight. Linda delivered the update in Ethan's office. They're going to use her as an alternative. If the court thinks she offers stability, they could remove Anna just to keep things neutral. Ethan rubbed his temples. So we're not fighting Gregory anymore. We're fighting a system that believes blood is enough. Linda nodded. That's what makes it harder. Yolanda's not abusive. She's just distant. That night, Ethan sat with Anna in the backyard, a small fire crackling in the pit. Max curled between them. Have you ever been to Arizona? Anna asked suddenly. No, Ethan replied. Too dry for my taste. She looked up at him. Do you think I'll have to go there? I don't know, he said honestly. But I do know this, no matter what, we'll fight. Not because we're afraid, but because we believe in what we've built. Anna nodded slowly. I don't want to be passed again. I want to stay where people remember what my laugh sounds like. Ethan smiled sadly. Me too. The final day of the evaluation arrived like a storm cloud. Miss Bryce came one last time. Notepad in hand. Eyes as steady as ever. She conducted a quiet exit interview, then asked to speak to Ethan privately. They stood in the foyer, near the staircase where Ethan had first seen Anna asleep with Max months ago. She's remarkable, Miss Bryce said. She is, Ethan agreed. I'm not allowed to tell you the contents of my report before the court sees it, she said. But I want you to know something not as an advocate, but as a woman who spent 40 years watching children fall through cracks. Whatever happens next, she'll remember you as the one who stood still when everything else ran. With that, she left. The court date was set for the following Monday. The weekend crawled forward, thick with anticipation. Ethan barely slept. Anna painted late into the night. The staff spoke in hushed tones. Even Max seemed more protective, refusing to leave Anna's side. On Sunday evening, Anna came downstairs wearing a dress Ethan had never seen her in before, white with soft blue flowers, slightly too big at the shoulders. This was my mom's, she said. Monique sent it. She thought I should wear it tomorrow. Said it looked like hope. Ethan's throat tightened. She's right. The night before the hearing, a package arrived. No return label. Inside was a thin envelope containing a single sentence on crisp white paper. Some people buy love, others earn it. Ethan read it twice. There was no signature. But he didn't need one. The threat was subtle, but clear. He burned the letter in the fireplace. Tomorrow would decide everything, not just where Anna would live, but what kind of world they still lived in, a world ruled by paperwork and pedigree. Or one that believed in something more enduring. Something like choice, like love, like home. And as the fire consumed the paper, Ethan made a silent vow. He would not lose her. Not tomorrow. Not ever. The courthouse looked different that morning, though nothing physical had changed. The same worn steps, the same security guards nodding without expression, the same faint echo of heels against marble. Yet for Ethan and Anna, everything felt heavier. As they stepped through the doors, she clutched his hand tighter than she had in weeks. Her white and blue floral dress swayed gently as she walked, but her chin was high, her back straight. She had decided she wouldn't look afraid, not today. Inside the courtroom, seats were filled with quiet observers. Some press, some members of advocacy groups who'd followed the case closely, and a few anonymous strangers who had simply been moved by the story. The whispers started the moment Ethan and Anna entered, but he ignored them. Today wasn't for them. Today was for Anna. Gregory Watts was already seated, flanked by his attorney and his cousin Yolanda. Yolanda looked uncomfortable, out of place in the polished courtroom, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She glanced at Anna but didn't smile. Anna didn't look at her at all. Judge Whitman, same as before, entered promptly. He carried the solemnity of someone fully aware of the weight of his decision. This hearing is to determine the final custodial placement of Anna Marie Walker, he began. All parties will be heard, and the court will review the evaluation provided by Miss Eleanor Bryce. No new evidence will be introduced unless deemed crucial. Miss Bryce was present, seated quietly behind the lawyer's table, her report already filed and sealed. The proceedings began with opening statements. Gregory's lawyer focused on long-term familial stability, citing Yolanda's clean record, stable home, and willingness to embrace Anna as part of the family. He described Ethan's household as emotionally charged and referred to the television interview as a media stunt meant to manipulate public opinion. Linda Vega countered with precision. This isn't about headlines. This is about healing. Anna's improvement over the last several months is not anecdotal. It's documented, observed, and now endorsed by the court. Appointed advocate. Then, Judge Whitman addressed Miss Bryce. You've submitted a detailed evaluation. Without revealing confidential content, can you summarize your conclusion for the court? Miss Bryce stood. Her voice was calm, yet firm. Anna is a child whose past is marked by neglect, instability, and trauma. What she requires now is not a biological tie, but an environment where her emotional safety is not only maintained, but nourished. Mr. Caldwell provides that environment. In my professional opinion, removing her from that home would not only be harmful, it would be unjust. Gregory's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed the statement. Yolanda was called to testify next. She spoke nervously, admitting she had never met Anna before being contacted about custody. I want to help, she said. I thought, maybe it's what family should do. Linda asked a single question on cross-examination. Do you love her? Yolanda hesitated. I don't know her well enough to say that yet. Anna watched in silence. Then it was Ethan's turn to testify again. He walked slowly to the stand, glanced at Anna, then took the oath. Mr. Caldwell, Judge Whitman said, this is your final opportunity to speak on behalf of your guardianship. Ethan took a breath. I don't come from a family that showed affection easily. My father believed in structure. My mother believed in silence. For most of my adult life, I believed I didn't need anyone. He looked at Anna, and then one night, a little girl asked if she could sleep in my doghouse. And that one question unraveled everything I thought I knew about what it meant to be human. He turned back to the judge. I didn't rescue her. She rescued me. Not from harm, but from indifference. She taught me what loyalty feels like, what fear looks like when it tries to smile, and what it means to stay when you're terrified. I'm not a perfect man, but I know this: I am her father. And I will never stop being that. No one spoke. Even Gregory looked momentarily stunned. Then the judge nodded. I'd like to hear from Anna, he said. There was a ripple of murmurs. Linda leaned over to Ethan. He's giving her agency. That's rare. That's powerful. Anna stood. She walked to the front, eyes focused, shoulders steady. Do you understand why you're here today? The judge asked gently. Yes, she said. You want to decide where I belong. And do you have something you'd like to say? She nodded. I've lived in 6 houses, 2 shelters, 1 motel, and for a few nights, in a doghouse. But the only place that's ever felt like home is where Ethan is, where Max is, where no one asks me to be less quiet, or less loud, or less me. She looked at Gregory. I don't want to go with you. Then at Yolanda. and I don't want to live with a stranger just because her name sounds like mine. Finally, she turned to the judge. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just, finally not afraid. And I don't want to lose that. Silence. Judge Whitman folded his hands. This court has reviewed all documentation, heard all testimonies, and considered the unique circumstances of this case. He paused. And it is the ruling of this court that full and permanent custody of Anna Marie Walker be awarded to Mr. Ethan Caldwell, with all parental rights therein transferred and formalized. Anna gasped. Ethan stood. The room buzzed with emotion. Flashes from cameras outside the windows bouncing off the polished floor. Gregory stood in outrage, but his lawyer quickly pulled him down. Yolanda bowed her head, then quietly walked out. Anna rushed to Ethan. He knelt as she threw her arms around him. I knew it, she whispered. He held her tightly. So did I. As they exited the courtroom, reporters swarmed. One shouted, Mr. Caldwell. Any final words? Ethan stopped. He looked at Anna, who gave a small nod. He turned to the cameras. We don't choose our beginnings, but we can choose each other. That's what we did. And that's what we'll keep doing. He took Anna's hand. And together, they walked into the light, no longer a man and a girl with a past, but a family with a future. The days after the court's final ruling carried a surreal kind of peace, one not filled with fireworks or fanfare, but the kind that settles gently into the bones. Ethan and Anna returned home to a house that no longer felt like a temporary shelter, but a permanent home. Every hallway echoed differently, as if the walls had exhaled after holding their breath for too long. Anna's room became her sanctuary. She redecorated it herself with help from Monique, who stayed a week longer to help Anna feel rooted. They chose soft blues and warm yellows, hung up framed versions of her best drawings, and even added fairy lights along the windowsill. Max, as always, slept at her feet. The hearth, the community center Anna had once only imagined, began to take real shape. Construction broke ground 2 weeks after the court's ruling, and Ethan made it a point to include Anna in every major decision. She walked the site in a white hard hat that was 2 sizes too big, carrying her notebook and talking confidently with the architects. I want a room with beanbags and music, she told them. And a shelf of books where kids can take one without having to ask. Noted, the lead architect said, smiling. You're the real boss, huh? She is, Ethan replied, not missing a beat. Donations began pouring in, many from people who had watched the custody trial unfold in the media. Letters came from single mothers, retired veterans, former foster kids. Most didn't have much to give, but they gave anyway. $10, $20, a handmade quilt, or a box of books. Ethan matched every dollar. One letter stood out. It was written in shaky handwriting on lined paper. When I was 8, nobody believed me. I spent 4 years bouncing between strangers. Watching you fight for that little girl made me believe again. Maybe it's not too late for the rest of us. Anna read it 3 times before folding it neatly and placing it in her treasure box. Ethan noticed something else too. She smiled more now. But the smile wasn't just surface deep. It was quieter, calmer, like a flickering candle that had finally found shelter from the wind. Still, peace did not mean everything was perfect. Late one night, Ethan woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. He found Anna standing at the top of the stairs, trembling. I had the dream again, she whispered. The one where I go back. He walked over, knelt, and opened his arms. She stepped into them without hesitation. You're not going back, he said. You're already home. Huh, she cried softly against his shoulder. Promise? Promise, he said, brushing her hair gently. Even if the whole world tried to take you, they'd have to go through me. And Max. At the mention of his name, the dog padded over and nudged Anna's side, resting his head against her leg. That weekend, Ethan hosted a small gathering at the estate, just close friends and a few members of the local community who had supported them. It wasn't a party, not exactly. More like a celebration of beginning. They held it in the backyard under warm string lights. Tables were covered in homemade dishes, cornbread, fried chicken, macaroni salad, and pitchers of sweet tea. There was laughter, music from a local jazz quartet, and stories shared around the fire pit. Anna gave a short speech. She stood on a small stool, holding a microphone almost too big for her hand. I used to think homes were places, she said. Now I know they're people. And this, she looked around at the faces glowing in the firelight. This is the biggest home I've ever had. There was not a dry eye in the crowd. Ethan watched her, arms crossed, pride swelling in his chest. It was the same feeling he'd once reserved for landing business deals or negotiating mergers, but this was purer, more permanent. After the speech, Monique pulled Ethan aside. She's healing, she said. Not fixed because that's not the goal, but healing. He nodded. I know. Which means now comes the harder part. He looked at her. Which part? Letting her grow, she said softly. Letting her become her own person. Not just the girl you rescued. The words settled like bricks in his mind. He understood. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of another one. One where Anna would someday step out into the world not as a survivor, but as a creator of her own path. The next morning, as the guests departed, Ethan found Anna in the garden, planting lavender. She wore a sun hat and garden gloves that were slightly too big. He knelt beside her. What are you working on? Smells help me sleep, she said. I want other kids to have that too, when they come to the hearth. So I'm planting for them. He smiled. You think about everyone, huh? Someone should, she said with a shrug. Most people forget. He looked at her for a long moment. I won't. She paused, then glanced sideways. Ethan? Yeah? Can I change my name? He blinked. What do you mean? I want to keep Anna, she said. But I want to be Anna Caldwell. He felt his throat tighten. Are you sure? She nodded. It feels right. And it's mine to choose now. He smiled, and for a brief second, he had to look away to keep the tears from falling. Then let's make it official, he said. And just like that, another stone was laid not in the foundation of a building, but in something far more powerful. The foundation of family. The hearth was still months from completion, but the home they'd built, it already stood tall. It was a Thursday afternoon when the letter arrived. It came without fanfare. Slipped quietly into the mailbox between a water bill and a catalog no one had subscribed to. Ethan noticed the envelope immediately off-white, thick paper, handwriting that was careful but unfamiliar. He opened it slowly on the porch, Max at his feet, Anna inside working on a painting for the hearth's entrance wall. To Mr. Caldwell and Anna, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. And maybe I don't deserve to be heard. But I've been doing a lot of thinking since the hearing. I watched her choose you, watched her stand up without fear. That's not the little girl I knew because I never really knew her. I just saw what I wanted, not who she was. I'm sorry for that. And if nothing else, I want you both to know. I'm letting go. No more appeals, no more fights. I hope she forgets me, or at least remembers me less than she remembers your dog, Gregory. Ethan stared at the letter for a long time. He folded it neatly, slid it into his back pocket, and said nothing to Anna, not yet. Some truths could wait. That evening, the hearth's central framework was finally complete. Anna, in her dusty work boots and rolled-up jeans, stepped through the unfinished doorway like royalty surveying her kingdom. Ethan followed behind, proud and amused. She wandered through what would soon be the community reading room, then into the indoor garden space, a space she had insisted on, filled with potted herbs and hanging flowers. Smells help people trust, she said again, repeating her theory like gospel. Trust smells like lavender and rosemary. Later, as they shared sandwiches on the front steps, Anna asked, Do you think he'll try again? Gregory? Ethan replied. Number he sent a letter. She stopped chewing. What'd it say? He looked at her, choosing his words carefully. It said he's letting go. No more fights. She chewed slowly, then swallowed. Good. I don't want to be angry at him forever. But I don't want to see him either. That's fair, Ethan said gently. Anna's eyes drifted to the horizon. Do you think I'll ever forget all of it? Ethan shook his head. Not all of it. But one day, it won't be the first thing you think of when you wake up. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor, Detective Morales. He showed up unannounced but was greeted warmly. He carried a manila envelope under one arm and a quiet expression on his face. "I was in the area," he said with a small smile. "Thought I'd stop by." Ethan led him inside. Anna was upstairs, still asleep. "I never got to say thank you," Ethan said as they sat at the kitchen table. Morales waved it off. "You don't thank a man for doing his job. But I've been thinking about your case ever since, and this," he tapped the envelope, "might be something Anna should see when she's ready." Inside was a collection of photos, documents, and a single faded school drawing one Anna had made during her first months at the shelter. Crayons scrawled across the page showed a girl holding a leash attached to a dog bigger than her. Above the drawing, written in blocky letters, "Someone nice will find me." Ethan didn't speak. He placed the picture face down, heart heavy. Morales stood to leave. "I've worked too many cases where kids don't get found, don't get heard. Anna did. That matters. Just make sure she knows." Later, Ethan gave the drawing to Anna without explanation. She sat on the floor with it in her lap for nearly an hour. "I forgot this," she whispered. "But I remember wishing it." The next weekend, Monique returned with her husband. The visit wasn't formal, just a reunion of sorts. They walked through the hearth's half-finished halls, admiring Anna's mural in progress. A winding tree stretching across one wall, branches filled with words like belong, listen, fight, and home. "Oh, this place will change lives," Monique said, arms crossed, eyes shimmering. "It already changed mine," Anna replied. They had dinner on the back patio, just as the sun began to melt into the hills. As the adults chatted, Anna sat beside her cousin Eli, a quiet boy with big glasses and an old soul. He pointed at Max. "Your dog's kind of famous," he said. Anna laughed. "Yeah, he didn't even try. He just stayed." Do you ever feel like people only like you because of the story?" Eli asked, serious. Anna thought for a long time. "Sometimes. But then I remember stories end. People stay. Or they don't. I only keep the ones who stay." That night, Ethan found Anna writing in her journal. She didn't notice him at the door, and he didn't interrupt. Her head was bent, her brow furrowed, her lips occasionally moving as she shaped thoughts into words. She wasn't the same girl who had once whispered through tears, "Can I sleep in your doghouse?" She was more. Not just safe but strong. Not just loved but chosen. Not just a survivor but a builder of futures. And as the moonlight slid softly through the window, Ethan knew. Her story wasn't defined by what had happened to her. It was defined by what she chose next. He would walk beside her for as long as she wanted him there. But the road ahead? It was hers. The hearth was finished on a rainy Tuesday. Not the kind of rain that drenches plans or muddies progress, but a soft, steady drizzle that seemed to cleanse everything it touched. Anna stood beneath a large white canopy at the entrance, wearing a navy coat over her dress, her curls pulled back into a ponytail. The ribbon stretched across the front doors, a rich maroon against the pale stone. Ethan stood beside her, umbrella in one hand, pride in the other. The event had drawn a crowd, neighbors, local leaders, journalists, volunteers, each holding small umbrellas or jackets pulled tight. There was no pomp, no celebrity appeal, just a quiet reverence for what had been built. The mayor gave a short speech, full of gratitude and civic pride. Linda spoke next, recounting the trials that led to this day. Then, to everyone's surprise, Anna was invited to the microphone. She looked at Ethan. He nodded. She stepped forward, the wind catching the edges of her coat. Her hands were steady. "I used to think the world was made of doors I wasn't allowed to open," she began. Shelter doors, courtroom doors, even the doors to people's hearts. There was a silence that came not from absence of sound, but from complete attention. But someone gave me a key. Not a real one, but a chance. And that key wasn't just for me. It was for all the other kids still waiting outside. This building, this place, it's not just walls and floors. It's proof that if you give someone a little hope, they'll build you a door of their own. Applause followed, not loud, but long and heartfelt. Then came the moment. Ethan handed her the ceremonial scissors. She cut the ribbon cleanly. The hearth was officially open. Inside, the walls were bright with murals, words of affirmation, laughter echoing from the first wave of visiting children. There were reading rooms, play spaces, quiet corners for reflection. In one room, Anna had insisted on installing a memory wall, a place for kids to pin drawings, letters, or items that reminded them of who they were and who they were becoming. Anna walked through every room, shaking hands, hugging volunteers, guiding reporters through the story of every wall, every window. When one journalist asked if she was the founder, she simply said, "I'm the reason it exists, but lots of people built it." No. That night, after the crowds left and the lights dimmed, Ethan found her sitting alone in the lavender garden at the back of the building. Rain still misted the air, but she didn't seem to mind. "You okay?" he asked, settling beside her on the bench. She nodded. "I just wanted a minute to remember everything." They sat in silence for a while. "Tomorrow," Anna said suddenly, "I want to visit my mom's grave." Ethan looked over at her. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I think it's time." So the next day, they drove out to the small cemetery on the edge of town. Anna held a bouquet of sunflowers and a letter tucked inside her coat. They found the grave easily. Monique had kept it clean, well tended. Anna knelt, brushing away leaves. She laid the flowers down, then sat cross-legged, pulling out the letter. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said softly, "but I wanted you to know. I'm okay. I have a real bed now, a real home, and a real name." She smiled. "I changed it. I hope that's okay. I kept Anna, but now I'm Anna Caldwell." She unfolded the letter and placed it at the base of the headstone, anchoring it with a small rock. "I'm not mad anymore," she whispered. "You did your best, and I finally believe that's true." Ethan watched from a respectful distance, hands in his coat pockets, eyes damp. On the drive back, Anna was quiet until they passed a stretch of highway flanked by blooming cherry trees. "I don't want to be the girl in the story forever," she said. "What do you want to be?" Ethan asked. She thought for a moment. "The girl who writes the next story." He smiled. "Then you'd better sharpen your pencils." Back at home, Anna went straight to her room and began sketching again new ideas for the Hearth's second phase, a mentorship program for foster teens aging out of the system. She wanted them to have something beyond the walls, a future, a plan. That weekend, Ethan hosted a quiet dinner with the core team who had helped build the Hearth. Linda, Monique, Detective Morales, and even Miss Bryce attended. They laughed over wine and slow-cooked beef, shared old stories, and raised a toast to Anna. "To the girl who made a house a home," Morales said. Anna blushed but didn't shy away. "To the people who didn't leave when I made it hard to stay," she added. That night, after everyone had gone, Ethan found a note on his nightstand. "Dear Ethan, I know people say they love you all the time, but sometimes you don't hear it the right way. So I just want to say thank you for never being afraid of my broken parts. You didn't just fix me. You let me fix myself. I love you, Anna." He read it twice. Then he placed it in the same drawer, where he kept her first drawing, the one from the shelter. The crayon lines hopeful and fragile. 2 notes, 2 versions of Anna, one past, one present, and in the space between them, the story of everything they had built together. The first morning of summer arrived with golden quiet. Not a sound of alarms, no rush of routines, just soft light slipping through the windows and the rhythmic breathing of Max curled at the foot of Anna's bed. She opened her eyes slowly, stretching, the quilt sliding off her shoulders. Downstairs, Ethan was already in the kitchen, humming tunelessly as he flipped pancakes. The scent of cinnamon filled the air. Anna came down in her oversized t-shirt, rubbing her eyes. "You're in a good mood," she said, yawning. He grinned. "It's Saturday. No meetings, no drama, just breakfast and a hike. You still up for it?" She nodded, grabbing a plate. Always. The hike had become a ritual for them every first Saturday of the new season. They'd found a trail just outside town, one that wound through shaded woods and led to a ridge overlooking the valley. Ethan had taken her there for the first time just weeks after the custody decision, when she still flinched at sudden noises and hesitated to walk too far from the car. Now she led the way. As they climbed, Anna spoke about a new idea for the Hearth, a podcast created by kids, telling their own stories, their own way. Everyone's always talking about us, she said, pushing a branch aside. But no one lets us talk. That's going to change, Ethan replied, out of breath but smiling. At the ridge, they sat side by side on a worn bench carved with initials. Anna reached into her backpack and pulled out a notebook. Been working on something, she said, flipping through pages. Ethan leaned in. On the page was the beginning of a speech. It's for the first anniversary of the Hearth, she explained. They want me to speak. Not just read something, really speak. She looked nervous for the first time in weeks. Ethan took the notebook gently. You want to practice? Anna nodded. He handed it back. She stood, took a breath, and began. Some people think healing is about forgetting. I used to think that too. I thought if I could forget the shelters, the shouting, the hunger, I'd feel whole. But forgetting isn't healing. Healing is remembering without breaking. Healing is looking at your scars and seeing not shame, but survival. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. When I was small, I used to count how many days I could go without someone yelling. I called it my quiet streak. My record was 4. Now, I live in a house where no one yells, and some nights, it's so quiet, I fall asleep smiling. She paused, eyes wet. Ethan rose, walking toward her, but she held up a hand. She wanted to finish. I didn't become less broken. I became more brave. And that's what this place is for. Not to fix people, but to remind them they never needed fixing in the first place. Just someone to see them. She finished and sat down. The wind brushed through the trees like applause. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. That was beautiful. She exhaled. I was scared. That's how you know it mattered. They hiked down in silence, both thinking about the year that had passed, about how far they'd come, about the journey ahead. Later that afternoon, the hearth was buzzing. Kids ran through the halls, volunteers sorted donations, and in the library room, Anna helped a shy boy find a book about space. You like planets? She asked. He nodded. Then you'll love this one, she said, handing him a worn hardcover. And when you're done, tell me your favorite planet. I'll draw it on the wall for you. His eyes lit up. Really? Promise. In the staff room, Ethan sat with Linda and Monique, reviewing plans for expanding the mentorship wing. This place is alive, Monique said. I've never seen anything like it. It's Anna, Ethan replied. She's the heart. Outside, the sun began to dip. The smell of grilled corn and baked beans drifted from the outdoor kitchen. Music played old Motown hits and families gathered for the summer kickoff celebration. Anna stood on the small stage, this time without notes. Last year, I stood here scared, she told the crowd. Now, I stand here sure. The audience leaned in, sure that places like this can exist, sure that people can change, sure that no matter how dark it gets, someone, somewhere, will light a match. She held up a candle, unlit. This is what I carried. Through foster homes, courtrooms, doghouses, just one small light. She struck a match and lit the candle. But sometimes all it takes is one. The crowd began lighting their own candles. Each person handed a match and a small white taper. One by one, the circle glowed. Anna looked out at them, her voice barely more than a whisper. Thank you for lighting the dark with me. Ethan watched her, standing just behind the crowd. He didn't need to speak. He didn't need to step in. She had become something greater than he ever imagined. Not a symbol, not a project, but a leader. That night, after the celebration, after the last guest had gone and the lights dimmed, Anna and Ethan sat on the porch. Max dozed between them. Do you miss the quiet? She asked. Sometimes, he said. But this kind of noise, I wouldn't trade it. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I'm glad you said yes. That night, when I asked, he smiled, eyes closed. So am I, Anna Caldwell, so am I. And in the distance, the hearth stood strong, its windows aglow, its doors wide open. Not the end, just the next beginning. The story of Anna Caldwell teaches us that healing isn't about forgetting the past, but about finding strength through it. It reminds us that true transformation begins when someone is seen, believed in, and given a chance no matter how broken they may feel. Through Ethan's quiet courage and Anna's resilient spirit, we learn that family isn't bound by blood, but by love, loyalty, and the willingness to stand in the dark and light a candle. It's a story about hope, justice, and the quiet power of choosing to stay when it's hardest.